Oh, it's crazy.
After hearing the details of the nonsensical story, unsupported by even a single shred of evidence, the mediator convinced you to accept a tiny fraction of your supposed damages. Your get-rich-quick scheme having failed, here you are back at Tro.
They said that they would take legal steps, and nothing never happened. Because you know why? I responded to him. And I sent something to the bar letting them know that he told the lie.
We've all seen the headlines. Will Smith's former best friend, brother Bilaal, the man who once claimed he walked in on Will and Duane Martin in a moment so graphic it made even the most jaded gossip blogs pause, is now lying in a hospital bed. And let's be real, no one's buying the accident story. Because when a man who spent the last year screaming about the Smiths' darkest secrets suddenly ends up fighting for his life, the first question isn't how, it's who. And the second, what did he know that they couldn't afford to let out?
Bilaal has filed a $3 million lawsuit against Jada, claiming that she basically threatened, it comes across like a threat, because...
This isn't just another tabloid scandal. This is a man who's been Will Smith's ride or stay loyal for nearly 4 decades. Someone who ate at their table, who knew the codes to their homes, who claims he saw things no one was ever supposed to talk about, now silenced in the most convenient way possible. And the timing? Oh, it's perfect. Just weeks after Bilaal went on Tasha K's show and doubled down on his allegations, promising to drop evidence about Will and Duane Martin's alleged affair if Jada didn't sue him. Remember that? Jada, you a bald-head liar and a substance addict. Those weren't just fighting words. Those were the kind of words that get you marked. And now, radio silence. No police reports, no official statements. Just Bilaal somewhere in a hospital while the Smiths' PR machine hums along like nothing's wrong. Funny how that works, isn't it? But let's back up, because this didn't start with a hospital bed. It started with a dressing room, a couch, and a claim so explosive it should have ended careers. Duane having intimate relations with Will. Now, we've all heard the rumors about Will and Duane. The whispers that started back in the 90s when they met on Fresh Prince. The way their friendship always seemed just a little too close for Hollywood's comfort. But Bilaal wasn't just some random blogger. He was family. And when he went on record, the Smiths didn't just deny it, they threatened. Jada's exact words? We are suing. Except they didn't. Not really. Because in Hollywood, when you're as powerful as the Smiths, you don't need a courtroom to shut someone up. You just make sure they disappear.
Will was bent over on the couch and Duane was standing up. Like, there was in there.
And let's talk about those threats, because they weren't subtle. Bilal's lawsuit, yes, the one where he's suing Jada for $3 million, details a moment in 2021 where he says Jada and her entourage cornered him in a hotel lobby and told him he'd end up missing or catch a bullet if he kept talking. That's not a warning, that's a promise. And what happened after he refused to play ball? His career tanked, his reputation got dragged, and now? He's in a hospital, and the only people acting surprised are the ones who still believe in coincidences. Meanwhile, Will's out here laughing it off on red carpets, Jada's doing damage control on the Breakfast Club, and the rest of us are supposed to just move on? Please. We've seen this movie before. The only difference this time? The body count might be higher than we thought. But here's where it gets even messier, because Bilaal isn't the only one who's ended up in the crosshairs after talking. Remember Brycer Gray? The Empire star who was once Will's protege? The guy who called Will his mentor? Yeah, he's currently sitting in a jail cell after violating probation. Again, this time for allegedly assaulting a woman who said his behavior was escalating and she feared for her safety. Now, normally, we'd chalk that up to another sad case of a celebrity gone bad. But Gray's name has been tied to something much darker lately. Rumors, allegedly from insiders, claim he's preparing a $50 million lawsuit against both Will Smith and Diddy for what he says went down in those freak-off sessions. You know, the same kind of freak-offs Brian King Joseph, the violinist on Will's tour, says he was groomed for before finding a handwritten note in his hotel room that read, "Brian, I'll be back, just us." Oh, and let's not forget the HIV medication, the hospital paperwork, the way Will's team allegedly shamed him into silence before firing him. Sound familiar? Because it should. It's the same playbook. Speak up, get silenced, resist, get ruined, and if you're really a problem, well, ask Bilaal how that's working out for him.
My feelings for him are just sadness. I feel sorry for somebody who was a young man in a industry who I believe was completely violated and used by people without, his permission, and he had to just go with it because these were powerful men, and in doing so he was promised more acting gigs, more career gigs, and none of that ever came. He was angry, upset, and it went down a very problematic route of substances, aggression, being charged, being arrested for bad things that he was doing himself.
Now, let's connect the dots, because this isn't just about Will. This is about the circle. The one that includes Diddy, the man who's currently facing federal human trafficking charges after multiple women. And now, allegedly, men have come forward with stories that sound awfully similar to what's happening with Will. Remember Terrence Howard's bombshell interview where he talked about Diddy's parties? You lose your man card, you don't get it back. Or how about Usher, who lived with Diddy as a teenager and called it wild and crazy, but won't say what he actually saw? And then there's Justin Bieber, the kid who spent 48 hours with Diddy at 15, joking on Kimmel about how, you know better than to talk about the things you do with Big Brother Puff. That's not a punchline, that's a confession. And when you look at the pattern, Will, Diddy, Charlie Mack, Will's best friend and Brycer Gray's manager, all these men with young proteges who end up broken, arrested, or hospitalized, you start to wonder, is this a coincidence? Or is this how the game works?
On in the political world, but over here in the legal world, when it comes to the Hollywood industry and just actors in music in general, not even just in Hollywood in general, but an interview via Tasha K's channel from Bilaal, who is, I believe, Will Smith's ex-best friend, has applied more pressure. And the man has come to bring in the conversation of Brycer Gray and how Brycer Gray was allegedly essayed by Will Smith from the back passage.
But here's the kicker. The Smiths aren't just any celebrities. They're Teflon. Will slaps Chris Rock on live TV, and what happens? He wins an Oscar months later. Jada writes a memoir about her entanglements, and the world calls her brave. They've spent decades crafting this image, the perfect Black Hollywood family, the ones who heal, who evolve, who rise above. And yet, every time someone gets close enough to peek behind the curtain, they end up like Bilaal, silenced. So when we ask who put him in that hospital bed, we're not just talking about a single attacker. We're talking about a system, one where men like Will and Diddy don't just have power, they wield it like a weapon. And if you cross them, well, you might just find yourself in a hospital, or a jail cell, or worse. And the wild part? We're still pretending this is just gossip, like Bilal's hospitalization is some tragic but isolated incident, like Brycer Gray's arrests aren't part of a pattern, like Brian King Joseph's lawsuit is just another he said, she said. But we know better, because in Hollywood, the real crime isn't what they do, it's what they get away with. And right now, the Smiths are getting away with everything, while Bilaal fights for his life, while Gray rots in a cell, while Joseph gets called a liar, and the rest of us, we're just supposed to keep scrolling, keep watching, keep consuming. But let's be real. This isn't just a story about a hospital bed. It's about what happens when you dare to challenge the gods of Hollywood. And if Bilal's condition is any indication, the gods always win. At least, that's what they want us to think. The question is, how many more bodies will it take before we stop believing them? And more importantly, who's next on the list? Because if there's one thing we've learned from the Smiths in their inner circle, it's that they don't just let things go. They erase them. And right now, someone's standing in the crosshairs. The only question left is, will we even hear the shot?
TMZ Live. So Jada Pinkett Smith is in the middle of a thing, namely
a big legal thing.
A big legal thing because, according to someone, Jada threatened to put a bullet in them.
Someone who is a close friend of Will's. Bilaal Salam says that he and Will have been very close friends.
And speaking of crime scenes, let's talk about that hotel room in Las Vegas. Because while Bilal's lying in a hospital bed, another man, Brian King Joseph, the violinist who was supposed to be the star of Will Smith's 2025 tour, found himself staring at a handwritten note that read, "Brian, I'll be back no later than 5:30, just us." Now, we've all seen creepy messages before, but this one came with a side of HIV medication, a red backpack that didn't belong to him, and hospital discharge papers for some stranger. Oh, and let's not forget the beer bottle and wipes, because nothing says welcome to the tour like evidence someone was preparing for something in your room while you were at rehearsal. And the kicker, when Brian reported it, Will's team didn't call the police. They fired him. Then they replaced him the next day, like he was some kind of disposable part in a machine. But here's the question no one's asking. If this is how they treat a stranger, someone with no prior ties to their world, what do you think they've done to the people who knew them? The ones who trusted them? The ones who maybe saw a little too much?
Yeah, Kate, so according to the complaint, this all happened in March of last year while the Violinist was on tour with Will Smith for Smith's global tour for his latest album based on a true story. And according to the complaint, there was this intrusion at his Las Vegas hotel room. He came back to his hotel, he says, and found that there was no forced entry, but that someone had entered the room and left a number of...
Let's rewind, because this isn't just about a violinist. It's about a pattern. Brian's lawsuit, filed right before the new year like someone was racing against a time limit, alleges Will was deliberately grooming him. That's not just a legal term. That's a predator's playbook. First, there's the special connection line Will allegedly dropped. You and I have such a special connection that I don't have with anyone else. Then, there's the private hotel room, booked by Will's team, where Brian was the only one with access. And finally, the termination. Not for poor performance, but for daring to speak up. Sound familiar? It should. Because it's the same script we've seen with Bilaal, with Brycer Gray, with anyone who gets too close to the truth. The only difference? Brian walked away with his life. For now. But here's where it gets even darker, because Brian isn't the first musician tied to Will Smith who's ended up in a legal nightmare. Remember Brycer Gray? The Empire star who once called Will his mentor? The guy who said Will walked with me every step of the way? Yeah, he's currently sitting in an Arizona jail cell after violating probation. Again, this time for allegedly assaulting a woman who said his behavior was escalating and she feared for her safety. Now, normally, we'd chalk that up to another sad case of a celebrity gone bad. But Gray's name has been tied to something much darker lately. Rumors, allegedly from insiders, claim he's preparing a $50 million lawsuit against both Will Smith and Diddy for what he says went down in those freak-off sessions. You know, the same kind of freak-offs Brian King Joseph says he was groomed for, the same kind Terrence Howard warned about when he said, "You lose your man card, you don't get it back." And let's not forget Gray's manager, Charlie Mack, Will Smith's best friend, the same Charlie Mack who got Gray the Empire role in the first place. Coincidence? Or is this how the machine works?
And just used him. I absolutely believe that Sean Diddy Combs would do things to Breshear Gray. I absolutely believe that Breshear Gray was violated by both of these men. That in itself is a believable narrative to me. Why? Because Breshear Gray right now is online on OnlyFans getting turned out by multiple men, you know, creating this OnlyFans content, trying to create money from it, and etc. So I can even see that taking place. I can imagine somebody being taken advantage of when they're young, being essayed when they're young, and that in itself can lead to problematic, aggressive behaviors, which is why they end up in prison.
Now, let's talk about Diddy. Because if you think Will Smith's circle is scary, wait until you see how deep the rabbit hole goes. We've all heard the rumors about Diddy's parties, the ones Usher lived through as a teenager and called wild and crazy but won't elaborate on, the ones Terrence Howard said left men screaming to get away. But here's what's new, the federal human trafficking charges Diddy's currently facing, the allegations that he recruited, transported, and exploited women, and now, allegedly men, in a scheme that sounds awfully similar to what's happening with Will. Remember that 48 Hours with Diddy clip with Justin Bieber? The one where Diddy warned a 16-year-old Bieber not to talk about the things he does with Big Brother Puff? That's not just a creepy moment. That's a confession. And when you look at the pattern, Will, Diddy, Charlie Mack, all these men with young proteges who end up broken, arrested, or hospitalized, you start to wonder, is this a coincidence? Or is this how the game works?
This is going to be groundbreaking what I'm doing, right? Because we're showing how people blackmail people, how people try to attempt to murder people, right? How people try to silence people, how people go to other companies to try to shut you down financially.
But let's connect the dots, because this isn't just about two men. It's about a system. One where powerful figures like Will and Diddy don't just have influence, they weaponize it. And if you cross them, well, let's look at the timeline. Bilaal threatens to expose Will and Duane Martin, hospitalized. Brycer Gray refuses to play ball, arrested. Brian King Joseph reports a crime, fired and replaced. And Diddy, he's facing decades in prison if convicted. But here's the thing, none of these men are acting alone. They're protected by layers of lawyers, PR teams, and a culture that lets them rewrite the narrative. Remember how Jada laughed off Bilaal's claims on The Breakfast Club? It's ridiculous, a money shakedown. Except Bilaal didn't get paid. He got silenced. And now he's in a hospital while Jada's out here talking about healing. Funny how that works, isn't it? And let's not forget the money. Because this isn't just about power, it's about control. Bilal's suing Jada for $3 million, but let's be real. This isn't about the cash. It's about survival. Because when you're up against people who can allegedly make you disappear, a lawsuit is the only lifeline you've got. And Brian King Joseph? He's not just suing for damages. He's suing because he has to. Because in Hollywood, if you don't fight back, you drown. And right now, the water's rising. And then there's the exodus. The quiet, panicked scrambling of the people who used to orbit Will Smith's world, like planets around a sun. Because here's the thing about scandals in 2026. They don't just fade. Not anymore. Not after the Diddy arrests. Not after the federal raids and the freak-off testimonies and the way the internet now treats allegations like a hunting license. 10 years ago? Sure, you'd get a few raised eyebrows, a carefully worded no comment from the PR teams, and life would go on. But now the rules have changed, and the people who know it best are the ones who are suddenly very busy when Will's name comes up.
I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse.
Take Charlie Mack, for instance, Will's longtime best friend, the man who walked him onto the Fresh Prince set, who got Brycer Gray his Empire role, who's been the invisible hand behind so many careers, it's like he's playing chess with real lives. Where's Charlie now? Not on Will's arm at events. Not posting throwback photos with the caption, "Brother for life." No, he's lying low, letting the dust settle, because when the FBI starts digging into one mogul's operation, the smart money knows they don't stop at just one. And Charlie's been in this game long enough to know which way the wind's blowing. The same goes for the other usual suspects. The producers who used to take Will's calls at 2 a.m., The A-list friends who'd show up to his legendary 4th of July parties, even the lesser Smiths, the cousins and the hangers-on who'd bask in the glow of the family name. They're all ghosts now, because in the wake of Diddy's downfall, no one wants to be the next domino. But here's the real tell, the business moves. The way projects that were locked for Will are suddenly under review. The way his production company, Westbrook, is reportedly quietly shopping its slate to other studios, like a ship's crew abandoning deck chairs while the Titanic's still got an hour before it hits the iceberg. Even the charities are distancing. No more photo ops with Will at the Boys and Girls Clubs, no more joint statements about youth empowerment. Because in 2026, association is liability. And the people who used to kiss the ring, they're the first to throw it in the harbor when the ship starts listing. And then there's the social media purge, the unfollows, the deleted posts, the way entire decades of friendship get memory hold overnight. You'd think after 40 years in Hollywood, Will would have an army ready to defend him. But scroll through his mentions now, and it's crickets from the people who matter. No ride or die posts from Jamie Foxx, no brotherly love shoutouts from Denzel. Not even a vague Instagram story from Tyler Perry, the king of we all make mistakes, second chances, because they've all done the math. And the equation is simple. Diddy's arrest, plus Bilaal's hospitalization, plus Brian's lawsuit, equals a liability no one's signing up for. So they're waiting, watching, letting Will twist in the wind, just in case the next subpoena has their name on it too.
It was my man, this is probably irreparable.
The irony? Will Smith built his career on being the good guy, the one who'd never leave you hanging, who'd always have your back, the man who turned protecting your family into a brand. But now he's learning the hard way that loyalty in Hollywood was never a two-way street. And in the age of Me Too 2.0, where the FBI's got a playbook for taking down powerful men, no one's sticking around to see if the lifeboats have room for them too. The rats aren't just jumping ship, they're setting it on fire on their way out. And Will? He's still on board, watching it all burn, probably wondering for the first time in his life what it feels like to be alone. But here's the part that should terrify us all, because this isn't just about Will Smith or Diddy or even the men who've spoken up. It's about the ones who haven't, the ones who are still trapped in that cycle of fear and silence, the ones who know that if they talk, they might end up like Bilaal, hospitalized, or like Gray in jail, or like Brian, blacklisted. And the worst part? The system knows this. It counts on it. Because as long as the cost of speaking up is higher than the cost of staying quiet, the secrets stay buried. And the powerful, they stay untouchable. So let's ask the question no one else will. How many more men have to end up in hospital beds before we admit this isn't about affairs or scandals or even intimacy? This is about survival. This is about what happens when you dare to challenge the gods of Hollywood. And if Bilal's condition is any indication, the gods always win. At least that's what they want us to think. But here's the thing about truth. It has a way of crawling out, no matter how deep you bury it. And right now, the ground is shifting. Because for every Bilaal in a hospital, for every Brian fired, for every Brycer behind bars, there's someone else watching, someone else remembering, someone else who knows that the only thing more dangerous than speaking up is staying silent. So we'll leave you with this. If the men who've already talked are ending up like this, what's happening to the ones we haven't heard from yet? Think about that, and then ask yourself, how long until the next name drops? Until then, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, in Hollywood, the scariest stories aren't the ones they tell you, they're the ones they don't. We'll be watching, always.